really there's a breakdown with men in dealing with modern women. Women have changed. Like y'all talked about. They can work and make their own money. A guy making enough money to basically put a roof over her head, that's not enough. He has to be able to do more. He has to be able to present more. And if this regular woman who would get with a regular guy who could, put a roof over her head and that was enough, is basically saying this regular guy has to go above and beyond regular just to get with a regular chick. So that
I agree with you that like men have to do more now, but like what they were doing before was like an embarrassingly bare minimum. Like you have to work a job and that was it. And now you have to actually be a good partner. And I think that men need to spend more time like figuring out what it means to be a good partner in a relationship.
When women needed men, families worked out. Soon as women didn't need men, now all of a sudden families don't work out. To try to circle that back and try to pin that on men for not being nicer or not doing more or not going above and beyond to be an above average man for this average chick that she should be happy with him. You're telling men basically get out there, tap dance in a top hat and be excellent for these chicks.
What you're saying is be excellent or pull up or like go above and beyond. I would view as like bare standards for being a decent human being. If your only way of getting a girl ever was relying on the fact that she couldn't work, that means you're a weak man. That means that you just don't offer anything. You're nothing. Like you're just a body that shows up at a factory, puts something together, and then goes home and thinks that that's enough to like land you some sort of relationship. And in the past it was, but I think it's a little bit sad that our standards would revert to that and that we think it should go back to that. Like, oh God, like this woman can work, a job, and now the fact that my paycheck isn't enough to win me a wife means that I'm completely and totally lost and hopeless. I think it's time to like step up and like be an actual decent person.
You're saying no, you have to be a decent human being. You haven't first substantiated the claim that these men who were taking care of their families were somehow not decent human beings.
Sure. So I would say that the emotional availability of men, the ability to communicate with
What does that mean?
Being able to understand how somebody feels about something and being able to have like emotionally fulfilling relationships or conversation with somebody that extends beyond just being there, earning a paycheck, and having kids, right?
Who listens to the other person more? Do women sit there and listen to men cry on their shoulder more, or do men listen to women cry on their shoulder more? Because if men have to listen to women and all their problems and crying on the shoulder, I think that's men being emotionally available. Right.
So the fact that your emotional vocabulary is limited to either extreme anger or crying on their shoulder is showing exactly what I'm talking about.
Those were the examples that I gave.
Those are the ones you gave. But every single time I'm talking about this, like people will go like, oh, like guys have to cry and break down. Like there is a whole gamut of emotion that people can experience.
Like women come to the table with more emotions. They're more emotionally volatile. The person who they typically dump that on is the man. So I'm saying right there, even though men may not, be as talkative and want to come throw all his problems on her, the fact that he's there, like who's the guy who's there and listening? Who's the guy who's there and listening to her and talking to her and even helping her and giving her advice and even solving a lot of those problems? That man lives with that woman for 24 hours. I don't think it was a time, well, maybe you go back far enough, but it's not a situation where men are just women in the mouth saying, shut up, I don't want to hear your problems. No, men, that's part of the deal. That's part of the deal. I think a small percentage of men could just beat their chest and say, I ain't listening to your problem, go tell your friends. But I think most men are there for their women. The notion that men were just naturally bad people, and then now the game. Okay, well, you technically did when you said they need to be better people.
Yeah.
That implies that they weren't as good and they need to get better.
Yeah. Okay. To be clear, I don't think that men were bad. Okay. So I've written down what you said, and I disagree with almost every single point you said. I think all of these are wrong. Okay. So one, you said women come to the table with more emotions. They might come to the table with more emotions, but that doesn't mean they have more emotions. Men have plenty of emotions that they have that they just don't know how to process and they don't know how to work through. If I had to guess, it's probably because from a very early age, men aren't really taught properly to deal with their emotions because we tend to externalize things. When boys get mad, they want to like punch and hit things, and parents will say, no, don't do that. So you're kind of taught to repress from an early age. So when women express emotions as children, it tends to be through things like crying or complaining, and that's okay. So they're usually taught to process those emotions healthier, right? I think men tend to carry more of this like up baggage, repression and shit with them through life. I think this is why men comprise like 80% of suicides versus women, right? I think it's because men have a lot of emotional problems that they can't process. When you say women are more emotionally volatile, I hear this claim over and over and over again. Women are more emotional. Women are emotional. Why? Oh, because they cry more. For some reason, anger is never viewed as like an actual emotion by any of the red pill community. When we say women are more emotionally volatile, do they cry more?
It is.
Yeah, sure. But like guys will bump into each other at the club, scuff their shoes, and then somebody's dead like 5 seconds later, right? Like how many, like when you're hearing about things like domestic violence, like who's causing more of the damage? It's men. When you're looking at things like violent crime, like 98% are men, right? So when we talk about like who's more emotional, like yeah, women might be more sad or they cry or they do things, you know, some of the times, but I would argue that that sort of emotional expression is way healthier than guys that kill themselves over stupid shit.